A tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Zero show. This is your host, David McKnight, author of The Power of Zero. You can find me at davidmcknight.com. Also, the author of several other books, Look Before You LERP. Some of you may not know that The Power of Zero was updated and revised through Penguin Random House in September. Whole new chapter on the Trump tax cuts. So if you haven't had a chance to read that version yet, please do. Today, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about something that I refer to as the volatility buffer. And I think this is going to be interesting to you for a number of different reasons. To introduce the concept of the volatility buffer, I'd like to discuss what the 4% rule is. Some of you may have heard of the 4% rule. The 4% rule says that there is a percentage that you can withdraw from your assets once you hit retirement and have a reasonable expectation that your money will not run out before you die, okay? And when I say reasonable, we're talking, 85 to 90% reliability that your money will last until retirement. And what they do is the industry runs Monte Carlo scenarios where they say, let's take a look at your stock allocation, whether it's 60% stocks, 40% bonds, 80-20, 100-0, and they run simulations. And they say, what if we mixed up all of these returns in thousands of different ways? What is the likelihood that given your portfolio balance and given, how much you're taking out, that your money will last until life expectancy? And what they've determined is that if you're at least a 60% stock allocation, meaning by the time you hit retirement, you have 60% stocks, 40% bonds, or even more aggressive, that you'll have, at least an 85% likelihood that your money will last to retirement. If you start taking out more than 4%, then your success ratio starts to drop precipitously. And that's why they've sort of agreed that 4%, is sort of a cardinal rule in terms of distribution. Some people are saying that number is even lower, 3.5%. But for our purposes today, we're just going to call it the 4% rule. What that basically means is that if you're constrained by the 4% rule, you have to save a lot more money than someone who may be constrained by a 5% rule or a 6% rule. I'll give you an example. Let's say you got $1 million. The 4% rule says that in retirement, you can only take out $40,000 per year. Well, and have a reasonable expectation that you can land at the end of your life without running out of money. Well, here's the problem. Let's say you want $100,000 to live on year in and year out in retirement, and you want to make sure that your money's not going to run out before you die. That means, based on the 4% rule, that you would have to have $2.5 million accumulated before you ever reach retirement, okay, or by the time you retire. That's a huge amount. And guess what? If you are not on track to hit 2.5 million, if that's your magic number, by the time you reach retirement, you basically got 5 options. You can save more, okay? You can spend less, meaning don't take out 100,000. Maybe you can only really afford to take out 80,000. You can work longer, so push back that retirement date from 65 to say 70. You can die sooner. That's my tongue-in-cheek option. Or you can take more risk in the stock market. In other words, instead of doing a 60-40 split between stocks and bonds in your portfolio, maybe you take a 80-20 and you increase the standard deviation in your portfolio. You increase the risk, which means there's a possibility you could get more return, but there's certainly no guarantee that you will. So that's the basic landscape when it comes to retirement planning, okay? Now, why is the 4% rule a rule? Why isn't it the 5% rule? Why isn't it the 6% rule? The big thing that figures into this is what we call sequence of return risk, which basically means that in the first 10 years of your retirement, you're going to average 2 to 4 down years, okay? In a typical retirement, the average investor will experience 2 to 4 down years. if what you're relying upon to fund your lifestyle and retirement is your stock market portfolio, you are going to have to draw money out of that stock market portfolio during those down years. So not only have you lost money in the market, you've taken an additional distribution, which caused your assets to go down even more. So those worker dollars that are responsible for funding your retirement are no longer able to do so because you've permanently deleted them from your portfolio because you took a distribution during a down year. So it's like kicking your portfolio when it's down. You are taking a distribution in the very year that money went down. So that's what we found, and what the studies show is that if you take too much money out during those down years, during the first 10 years of retirement, you can actually run out of money 15 to 20 years faster than someone who did not experience those down years in those first 10 years of retirement. So very, very important to understand the ground rules here. We have the 4% rule because if what you're doing is relying on your stock market portfolio in those first 10 years of retirement, you can send your stock market portfolio into a death spiral from which it will never recover. Okay. If you can only take out 4%, that means that you can weather those down years in the first 10 years of retirement, still take out that 4%, and the likelihood of you not running out of money still remains 85% or higher. So sequence of return risk, the likelihood that you can take money out during a down year can prove fatal. It's one of the biggest threats to your retirement portfolio. So it's very, very important that we understand why the industry has this 4% rule, or some people are even calling it the 3.5% rule. So what can you do about it? How can you prepare for a 4% distribution rate? And is there a way that we can up that 4% distribution rate? In other words, what if I don't think that I can get $2.5 million by retirement, and I don't really like all of those other options of save more, spend less, work harder, save more, spend less, live longer, die sooner, take more risk in the stock market? What if I don't like any of those alternatives? Well, there may be another thing that you can do, and that's implement what we call a volatility buffer. And the basic premise behind the volatility buffer is that during your working years, you take some money that would have otherwise gone towards your stock market portfolio, you peel it off, and you put it into an account that is earmarked for retirement. And when you get to retirement, the idea is to have enough money in that account where you can fund your lifestyle during those 2 to 4 years in the first 10 years of retirement when the stock market is down. So for example, you get to the third year of your retirement, your stock portfolio goes down by 20%. Well, instead of taking money out of your stock portfolio that year, you take money out of this volatility buffer account. So you fund your lifestyle out of that account instead of taking out of your stock market. And what they found is that if you can get 3 or 4 years worth of volatility buffer accumulated, you can dramatically raise the amount of money, the withdrawal rate that you can take out of your stock market portfolio. Now, the volatility buffer has to have a couple of attributes. You can't, for example, just say, I'm going to get to retirement, I'm going to take 4 years worth of lifestyle out of my stock market portfolio and stick it into a savings account. You can't just do that. And we'll explain why here in a second. First of all, first attribute is your volatility buffer has to be safe. And the reason it has to be safe is because if your volatility buffer is correlated to the stock market, your stock market portfolio goes down and you're looking to fund your lifestyle out of your volatility buffer, but your volatility buffer is also way down, then you haven't really fixed the problem. So not only does your volatility buffer need to be safe, it needs to be productive. Why? Because you'll be funding your volatility buffer years before you ever get to retirement. So if you're peeling money off of a stock market portfolio or a contribution that would have otherwise gone to a stock market portfolio, and you're stuffing it into this volatility buffer, and this volatility buffer is only earning you 0.5%, there's going to be a massive opportunity cost of not allowing that money to continue to grow in your stock market portfolio. So we've got to get safe and productive growth. And when I say safe and productive growth, I'm talking, 5 or 6%, maybe even as low as 4%, but I would really love to get 5 or 6%. So it's got to be safe and productive. It's also got to be tax-free. Here's why. You can't get to retirement with your volatility buffer. And then, as you guys know, I make the case that tax rates could be double in our retirement than what they are today. You can't get to retirement, take money out of your stock, your volatility buffer, and only to find that you have to give 50% of it back to the IRS. You're not able to fund 3 or 4 years worth of lifestyle if you have to pay 50% tax. That's only 1.5 to 2 years worth of lifestyle. So we would really like it to be tax-free. It's going to insulate us against tax rate risk in the future. The last quality that we're really going to talk about when it comes to the volatility buffer is it has to be in place before you hit retirement. And here's why. If you retired, for example, in the year 2000 and experienced 3 straight years of downturns in the market, that was a horrible time to realize that you needed a volatility buffer. If you tried to take money out of your stock market portfolio, get it into the volatility buffer during those times, what did you do? You sold at a low, stuck the money in some sort of a savings account or low yield vehicle with the hope that you could fund your volatility buffer. And then the next 2 years, while the market continued to go down, you tried to fund your lifestyle out of that stock market or out of that savings account or other low yielding investment vehicle. So it needs to be in place before you ever hit retirement. You have to pack your bags before you go on vacation. This stuff has got to be in place before you need it. You can't decide that you need it. It's like life insurance. You can't decide you need life insurance in the year that you no longer qualify for it because of some health issue. So in summary, your volatility buffer needs to be safe, it needs to be productive, it needs to be tax-free, and it really needs to be in place before you hit retirement. And in a perfect world, you would have unlimited contributions that you could make to this volatility buffer and no income limitations. Those are also very important qualities because the type of vehicle that we're looking for, if it's going to be safe, productive, tax-free, and in place before you hit retirement, you need, if you use traditional tax-free vehicles, you may be constrained, like with a Roth IRA, you may be constrained by how much you can put in there because they have income limits and also contribution limits. So my book that's coming out, probably not next month, but the month after that, is a financial novella in which I describe a real plot with real characters. It has a cool twist ending at the end. There's a little hook at the end of each chapter to swiftly and suspensefully shepherd you through the plot. I think it's a very cool plot, and that tells the story of the volatility buffer. It's not based on a real life scenario, but it could be a real life scenario in which a volatility buffer can play a prominent and very beneficial role. At the end of the book, where there will be frequently asked questions, so that if the story itself doesn't answer all your questions about the volatility buffer and how to make it work for you, then those frequently asked questions at the end will help you. It is a very math-based book. As you guys know, I love to corroborate all of my recommendations with math. This story will be no different. There's lots of math-based recommendations, Monte Carlo simulations, and we really want to show you that you will be much better off by using a volatility buffer given the right circumstances and given the right vehicle. By the way, it's not any surprise that there aren't very many vehicles out there that can give you safe, productive, tax-free, unlimited contributions, no income limits, and help you have it in place before you hit retirement. Cash value life insurance, what I refer to as the life insurance retirement plan, is a very, very compelling fit for this type of tool. And I'll make an even more compelling case for it in the book, which will come out within 2 months, I would say. Anyway, that's the show for today. I just wanted to wet your whistle a little bit as it relates to the volatility buffer, and we will have, of course, more about this concept as we move forward in time. But again, thank you for being on the show. If you would like to get a hold of me, reach me at davidmcknight.com, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks, everyone.